The Clash in Paris event was billed as a landmark showcase of professional wrestling, combining athleticism, drama, and high-stakes storytelling. Fans packed arenas across the globe, eagerly anticipating thrilling performances from WWE's biggest stars. However, what was intended to be a spectacular celebration of sports entertainment quickly devolved into chaos. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief and cornerstone of WWE, suffered a devastating spear from Braun Breaker, assisted by Bronson Reed, that left him critically injured. The violence exceeded scripted performance, blurring lines between entertainment and real danger. Reigns was stretchered out of the arena, leaving fans, colleagues, and the wrestling world in shock. Immediate shock and backstage horror witnesses described the arena as eerily silent following the attack. Jey Uso, Reigns' close ally, broke down backstage, struggling to process the scene. Across company lines, AEW star Jon Moxley voiced outrage, emphasizing that this incident transcended scripted rivalries. The attack demonstrated the real-world dangers performers face when staged intensity is pushed to extremes. Backstage, personnel scrambled to assess the damage, while medical teams rushed to stabilize Reigns. The immediate crisis exposed gaps in safety protocols and prompted urgent conversations about accountability. Triple H's public statement, denial and deflection. As WWE's chief content officer, Triple H was the person expected to address the incident decisively. His emergency press conference, however, drew immediate criticism. Publicly, he claimed that Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed exceeded instructions, framing the attack as a breach of safety protocols. "We are investigating the serious breach of safety protocols by talent who ignored established guidelines," he said. Yet leaked emails, production notes, and video footage directly contradict his statements, revealing that Triple H had explicitly authorized the level of violence that caused Reigns critical injuries. Evidence of pre-authorization and escalation. Multiple internal documents, including emails and recorded instructions, show that Triple H directed performers to escalate the intensity for maximum impact. He reportedly told Breaker and Reed, "Don't worry about going too far. We need maximum impact. Maximum impact." These instructions indicate premeditation rather than spontaneous performer misconduct. Insider accounts suggest that every detail of the attack was coordinated and approved, leaving little doubt about the responsibility of WWE leadership. Corporate manipulation and public relations strategy. Leaked PR strategy documents reveal a disturbing focus on leveraging the incident for promotional purposes. One memo stated, "We should leverage this concern for promotional purposes while maintaining plausible deniability about management responsibility." Rather than prioritizing Reigns' safety, corporate communications focused on audience engagement and media narratives to protect WWE's image. Even as Reigns remained in critical condition, Triple H and his team reportedly discussed narrative control, audience manipulation, and media messaging, highlighting a chilling prioritization of corporate image over human welfare. Medical reality, a critical condition. Reports from medical personnel treating Reigns indicate severe internal injuries and potential oxygen deprivation, raising concerns about possible long-term brain damage. Discussions have included the possibility of permanent neurological impairment. Leaked footage shows Triple H's focus on legal exposure and corporate liability rather than medical support. Questions like, "What's my exposure if this gets worse?" underscore a concerning prioritization of self-interest over employee welfare. Attempted scapegoating of performers. In addition to PR manipulation, Triple H allegedly sought to shift financial responsibility for Reigns' medical care onto Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, arguing that the performers had exceeded instructions. legal consultations reveal that Reed and Breaker possess recordings proving they followed Triple H's direct orders. Their attorneys assert that Triple H's claims of unauthorized action are demonstrably false. These documents and recordings could legally expose him to civil and criminal liability while simultaneously vindicating the wrestlers. Private admissions versus public denial. Leaked conversations between Triple H and family members reveal a private acknowledgement of the risks he authorized, including the potential for Reigns not to survive. Statements like, "What if Roman doesn't wake up? How do I explain that I authorized the attack that killed him?" stand in stark contrast to his public denials. This duality demonstrates a calculated campaign of deception intended to protect his corporate standing while minimizing attention to the life-threatening consequences of his decisions. Medical evidence of systematic assault. Medical personnel treating Reigns have described injury patterns consistent with a planned and authorized assault, rather than spontaneous or rogue actions by performers. One doctor noted, "The level of precision suggests planning and authorization rather than spontaneous escalation." Such assessments reinforce the documentary evidence that Triple H directly instructed extreme violence. Independent investigators are reportedly using this evidence in France, potentially treating the incident as criminal assault due to the systematic, premeditated nature of the attack. Board oversight and corporate accountability. Even WWE's board of directors has reportedly considered terminating Triple H over his handling of the incident. Internal notes reference potential termination due to negligence and deception. Despite this, leaked communications show that Triple H remained focused on narrative control, media influence, and suppression of dissent from performers, highlighting a calculated campaign to protect his reputation at the expense of the injured star. Industry repercussions and ethical implications. The Clash in Paris incident has sparked widespread industry scrutiny. Analysts, independent journalists, and fans are debating the ethical responsibilities of executives in sports entertainment. Legal experts suggest that premeditated authorization of extreme violence could expose Triple H and WWE to criminal and civil penalties. The case raises critical questions about corporate accountability, performer safety, and the limits of creative license in high-risk entertainment. Fan outrage and media response. Global fans and independent media outlets have expressed overwhelming outrage over the incident. Social media platforms are flooded with discussions about ethics, accountability, and the responsibility of executives to protect performers. WWE's domestic media coverage, influenced by corporate access, has been criticized for repeating misleading statements, while independent journalists continue to expose the truth. The combination of documented evidence, insider testimony, and medical reports has fueled a growing demand for transparency and justice. The legal and criminal landscape French authorities are reportedly treating Reigns' injuries as evidence of criminal assault based on medical findings and the premeditated nature of the attack. Investigators suggest that the level of violence exceeded normal sports entertainment parameters and may constitute criminal negligence or assault. This legal scrutiny, combined with potential civil lawsuits from performers, indicates that Triple H's actions could have far-reaching consequences for both him and WWE. Performer safety and corporate culture. The Clash in Paris crisis highlights the urgent need for systemic changes in WWE's approach to performer safety. The incident underscores how corporate directives can place employees in extreme danger when unchecked. Independent observers argue that new safety protocols, clear boundaries for in-ring violence, and robust oversight mechanisms are critical to preventing similar incidents in the future. Triple H's handling has become a cautionary tale of how executive priorities can conflict dangerously with human welfare. The Clash in Paris, a nightmare unfolds. The Clash in Paris event was billed as a historic spectacle, promising fans around the world a display of athleticism, drama, and narrative mastery that WWE had meticulously crafted for months. Marketing campaigns hyped it as a landmark event, with promises of unforgettable moments and high-stakes matches that would define the era of professional wrestling. Thousands of fans filled the Paris arena to capacity, chanting and cheering for their favourite superstars. Millions more tuned in via live broadcasts, social media streams and pay-per-view services, expecting a combination of theatrics and athletic excellence. Yet what unfolded inside the arena defied expectations. Roman Reigns, WWE's tribal chief and central figure in the company's storytelling universe, was violently attacked by Braun Breaker, with Bronson Reed assisting in what was initially presented as a scripted confrontation. The intensity of the assault, however, exceeded all agreed-upon boundaries. The violence was real, unplanned in its ferocity, and utterly shocking. Reigns lay motionless on the mat, his body battered and his breathing laboured. Medical teams rushed him onto a stretcher, while fans and performers alike were paralysed by disbelief. The spectacle intended for entertainment had crossed a dangerous line into life-threatening reality. Immediate shock and backstage horror backstage, chaos mirrored the horror in the arena. Jey Uso, a trusted ally and close friend of Reigns, was seen breaking down, unable to process the scene unfolding in front of him. Cameras and cell phones captured moments of panic and disbelief as colleagues tried to assess the situation. WWE personnel scrambled to coordinate emergency medical responses, yet the incident exposed glaring gaps in safety protocols. Officials questioned how such an unrestrained level of violence could occur despite the presence of security personnel, referees, and backstage monitors. Outside WWE, the reaction was equally intense. AEW's Jon Moxley publicly condemned the attack, emphasizing that the incident transcended scripted rivalries and highlighted the very real dangers faced by performers. Fans across social media platforms expressed outrage, disbelief, and concern for Reigns' well-being, flooding hashtags with urgent pleas for updates and justice. The wrestling world realized that an incident of this magnitude could alter careers, corporate leadership, and fan trust. Triple H's public statement, denial and deflection. As WWE's chief content officer and a key executive responsible for creative oversight, Triple H was expected to address the crisis decisively. His emergency press conference, however, did not satisfy fans, performers, or media professionals. In front of a podium, he claimed that Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed had exceeded instructions, framing the incident as a violation of established safety protocols. "We are investigating the serious breach of safety protocols by talent who ignored established guidelines," he stated, emphasizing a narrative of performer negligence. Yet evidence directly contradicts his public statements. Leaked emails, backstage recordings, and production notes reveal that Triple H had authorized and even encouraged a heightened level of violence to make the segment memorable. Insider sources report that the intensity of the attack was precisely in line with his instructions. The contradiction between his public narrative and the documented evidence fueled growing mistrust among wrestlers, media outlets, and fans alike. Evidence of pre-authorization and escalation. Multiple documents and recorded instructions indicate that Triple H personally directed performers to take the segment to the next level for maximum audience impact. In internal communications, he allegedly told Breaker and Reed, "Don't worry about going too far. We need maximum impact. maximum impact. Such directives suggest premeditation rather than spontaneous deviation from script. Every stage position, weapon interaction, and in-ring maneuver appears to have been carefully coordinated under executive supervision. The result was a calculated escalation that left Reigns critically injured and exposed WWE to intense scrutiny. Corporate manipulation and public relations strategy. Leaked PR strategy documents provide a chilling glimpse into WWE's corporate priorities during the crisis. Memos indicate that management's primary concern was maintaining audience engagement and narrative control rather than ensuring performer safety. One internal note reads, "We should leverage this concern for promotional purposes while maintaining plausible deniability about management responsibility." Rather than acknowledging the severity of Reigns' injuries, corporate communications focused on framing the incident as an isolated performer violation, protecting WWE's brand and stock value. The ethical implications were stark. Medical updates and backstage assessments were secondary to controlling the story, preventing negative media coverage, and preserving relationships with network partners. Even as Reigns remained in critical condition in Paris, executive discussions revolved around narrative manipulation, fan perception, and potential PR spin. This prioritization of corporate image over human life alarmed internal and external observers alike. Medical reality, a critical condition. Medical personnel treating Roman Reigns reported severe internal injuries, including potential organ damage and oxygen deprivation during the in-ring attack. Discussions regarding long-term neurological impairment, including possible permanent brain damage, began almost immediately. Doctors and emergency medical teams expressed alarm at the level of trauma, indicating that the assault exceeded what would typically be encountered in controlled sports entertainment scenarios. Leaked video footage revealed that Triple H's primary concern was legal liability rather than immediate medical intervention. Questions posed during private emergency meetings, such as, "What's my exposure if this gets worse?" reflect a corporate focus on self-protection rather than employee welfare. The contrast between executive priorities and medical realities underscores a troubling gap between leadership responsibilities and ethical obligations toward performers. Attempted scapegoating of performers. In the aftermath, Triple H allegedly sought to shift responsibility and financial liability onto Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, arguing that the performers had exceeded the approved intensity of the segment. However, both wrestlers reportedly possess recordings and emails proving that every instruction was delivered directly by Triple H. Their legal counsel asserts that the executive's claims of unauthorized action are demonstrably false. These revelations carry substantial legal implications. Civil and criminal liability could potentially fall on WWE leadership rather than performers, provided the evidence is formally acknowledged. Reed and Breaker, despite being publicly blamed, may be legally vindicated due to their documentation and adherence to explicit directives. Private admissions versus public denial. Leaked private conversations between Triple H and family members reveal an acknowledgement of the risks he authorized. Statements such as, "What if Roman doesn't wake up? How do I explain that I authorized the attack that killed him?" illustrate an awareness of the potential life-threatening consequences, contrasting sharply with his public denials. This duplicity indicates a deliberate strategy to protect personal and corporate reputation while minimizing attention to the human cost of his decisions.